So, all right, guys, we got to get this one right. On three, we're going to say, welcome back to Extraordinary Thoughts for on their mind. 1, 2, 3.
Welcome back to Minds.
And we back.
That'll work right there.
Yeah.
And we back. And we
Yeah.
back. And we back. And we back. And we
Y'all did y'all best. And that's all that matters.
Now, before we get started with this episode, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, like this episode, share this podcast, and if you can, do me a favor, head on down to the review section and leave an honest review, because this podcast was dedicated to helping us become a better version of ourselves. And I don't know what that version is, but I know that just like we need a little bit more money, just like we need a little bit more sleep, just like we need a little bit more of anything in life, we deserve to be a little better than what we are right now. What's going on, everybody? It's that ordinary podcaster with the extraordinary thoughts that tells you to stop being great and be extraordinary. I'm your host, Demetrius Thickman, also known as Meech Speaks, and welcome back to another episode of Extraordinary Thoughts for the Ordinary Mind. Okay, so coming back, you know what I mean? Like doing this episode on Monday, it just feels like I've been on air back to back to back. You know what I mean? Like I went from not podcasting to dropping what I want to say, almost what 2-3 episodes back to back to back. You know what I mean? So it's definitely, I'm really one of those, like, I'm hitting the ground and I'm running again. So I might need to take a break at some point. You know what I mean? So, and when I say like take a break, I'm not about to like take a break and disappear, but we're probably going to go back to like one episode a week, you know, but coming into this, right? Like I've done a lot of topics in regards to being true to yourself, you know, taking that break before you break, dealing with good friends, bad friends. You know, I've talked about a lot of things within this particular niche, you know, like I've really dove real deep into like that self-help, self-love, mental mindset, whatever the fuck you want to call it. Like I really have dove deep into it. But one topic that I've kind of stayed clear from it was working in a toxic environment. You know what I mean? I've always stayed clear, or I tread real lightly when I talked about working in a toxic environment. And it's not out of fear. You know what I mean? Like I never talk about it because, oh, you know, I don't want, you know, somebody to hear it and think like, nah, it's not necessarily that. The reason why I rarely talk about working in a toxic environment is because there's just so many variables. You know, there's so many variables that go into it. And when I talk about an episode, right? Like when I do an episode, I try to do an episode that I can relate to. I always have that in mind when I do these episodes. Is this something that I can relate to? Is this something that I could utilize? That's it right there. If the contents in this episode, could I use it? And that was one of the main reasons why I never really talk about working in a toxic environment. Because when you look up like working in a toxic environment, because it's not like a known secret, you know, it's not like a fucking secret where, you know, if you work in a toxic environment, like here's these like, you know, how to survive it or how to get out of this situation. You know what I mean? Like it's all over the internet. Like you can easily find it. There's articles about it. You know, there's books about it. I mean, shit, people, you know, put together seminars to deal with these, you know, in order to change the climate of it. But at the end of every article, right? At the end of every article for how to deal with a toxic environment, especially in the workplace, it always says leave. It always says leave, you know? And for somebody right now who's not in the military, like for somebody right now, that is gold. That is fucking gold for them. If you working in a toxic environment and the shit is just draining you, it's draining you on a level that you just you can't put back what it's constantly taking out. You know, to leave that's gold. But for somebody that's in the military, when you tell us like, hey man, you know, I work in a toxic environment, and somebody's like, oh well, you know, you just need to leave. Well, bitch, I can't. I can't fucking leave. You know what I mean? Like that's one of the main reasons why I never really do episodes on working in a toxic environment, because at the end of the episode, I got to tell you, you know, if it's just too much and all of these things that I have just told you are not working, you need to leave, but you can't. You can't fucking leave. You're stuck there. You're stuck there for 3 fucking years. You got to deal with it. You know what I mean? You literally have to figure out a way to deal with it. And because I never wanted to say that out loud, you know what I mean? Because to say that out loud, it gives it a different power. You know, it gives it a different power rather than saying it in your head. And I always tell myself, like, you know, there has to be another way. There has to be another fucking way to survive this situation besides just leaving. Because to be honest, leaving is not on the it's not on the table. You know what I mean? It's really just not on the fucking table. And because of toxic culture, toxic people, toxic work environments, I have seen people who could have easily turned the military into a career, into a fucking 4 year, 4 year part of their life that they're just going to repress when they get out. I've seen a lot of people who went from their very highest to their very lowest because of toxic people, toxic work environments. I've seen it. And we didn't really have the tools. We didn't really have the guidance. We didn't have the means to get through the shit. Anytime that we would try to tell somebody what was going on with us, they would just say, well, I mean, just leave. If I worked at fucking McDonald's and the environment was toxic, yeah, I would quit. You know what I mean? If I was working at some job out in the civilian world and the environment was just so toxic to the point where it was just taking a detriment to my fucking mental health, then yeah, I would quit. But what the fuck do I do when I'm in the military and I'm surrounded by it constantly? What are the things that I can do to be able to survive the next day? And those were the questions that I would ask myself every single time that I would jot down. I would script it. I would do my research. You know what I mean? Like if you ever talk to me offline, like I'll be able to give you all type of like information on what it's like to work in a toxic environment and how to overcome it. But I never wanted to go on air and say it because at the end of it, I have to say that you have to leave. And to be honest with you, when you're in the military, right? Like when you're in the military, somebody telling you that you need to fucking leave is like, dog, like, if I could, I would. What else you got for me? Because leaving is not the fucking option. So with that being said, going into this Monday morning, I really wanted to do this episode. I really wanted to do this episode about how to survive a toxic environment. And with it, yes, well, I tell you to leave, but before I tell you to leave, I'm going to give you them steps, right? I'm going to give you those core things that you truly are going to fucking need in order to get through it. And please bear with me because I understand. I've worked in a toxic environment before. I know exactly what you're going through. I know that leaving ain't really a fucking option. So the things that I'm really about to give you, I'm going to bring in a little bit of heat with it. You feel me? Other reason why I didn't want to do this episode is because of the other variable that you have to take into consideration when you do an episode about toxic environment or toxic work environment is that motherfuckers lie. Motherfuckers lie, bro. You feel me? And there's always 3 truths. Your truth, their truth, and the truth. You feel me? And it's so, just like we say self-care, just like we say self-love, just like we say all of these things that have been trending, we tend to use the word toxic so fucking what's that word? Frequent. We use it so frequently that it almost loses its meaning. You feel me? Like it almost loses its meaning. And I try not to undermine people when they tell me this shit. And I definitely try not to take away from your environment. But at the exact same time, I cannot help but listen to the full story. I can't help but not listen to the full story and see what role you're playing in it. And a lot of times is that your environment isn't toxic. You're toxic. You know what I mean? And I'm going to say that one more time before we start this episode. One of the real reasons why I never like doing these episodes or I never wanted to do this episode is because of the variable that it may not be your environment. It actually just may be you. So if that does not apply to you, then, understand that I'm not talking to you. But, I'm a transparent person. I like to keep it transparent. I like to keep it 100. A lot of times it's not the environment that is necessarily toxic. It's your piss poor work habits that lead to the shit that's happening to you. It's your piss poor, interactions with people. It's your negative attitude. It's how you carry yourself. And that is the reason why this environment is so detrimental to you. That's why. And in fact, it's not necessarily the environment that's fucking killing you. You're probably just killing everything in the environment, and you're realizing that now that there's nothing in the environment that I can take from, this must be a toxic environment. So I wanted to clear the air before I go into this episode. I really wanted to clear this air and set a certain level of transparency as we mirror walk down this episode. So with that being said, let's just go ahead. Let's just talk about the key things that will identify that you probably work in a toxic environment. All right, so the first one is little to no enthusiasm. And when I say little to no enthusiasm, I'm not just talking about you. I'm talking about the people that's at the job with you. You feel me? When you work in a toxic environment, you're not the only one that's feeling it. You feel me? Like a toxic culture, the people that inhabit it, the ones that realize that they're in a toxic environment, they are feeling it just as much as you do. Now, people will not show it the same way that you show it, but they're feeling it. You know what I mean? A good indicator of that, right, is the lack of enthusiasm that everyone has towards taskers. Like if it seems like it's like pulling teeth for anybody to get up and do something, it's because they're probably burnt out. It's probably because they already got a shitload of other taskers, and here comes another one, and now they're just dragging ass towards it. Honestly, you probably work in a toxic environment if everybody there is trying to fucking leave. Like a good indicator of this is that if you come into like a platoon company, something of that nature, you feel me? And you look around and motherfuckers is trying to they trying to go on SDAs. They trying to go to, they trying to get orders out of there. You feel me? They calling up the monitor and asking them like, yo, look, how long do I got here? How long do you need me actually on station right now? You feel me? How long do you need me here before you can transfer me out? Because you're probably working in a toxic environment. You know what I mean? Like you're probably working there. I remember working somewhere and I never in my entire military career, right? I had never started counting down the days that I was there. I never did. It just seemed like the days would just bleed over. And next thing you know, the same time I got there is now next thing you know, I'm about to leave. Man, I remember working there and just thinking to myself like, fuck, man, we just got 2 more years of this. Fuck, man, we just got 1 more year of this. Damn, we only got 3 more months, man. You just got to make it. You just got to make it to it so you can get the hell up out of there. And it was so bad that it actually caused me to leave the state. I ended up actually leaving the state so that way I can get away from the people, the culture. I didn't want nothing to do with it. So if you're in one of those environments where it's at the point where you're prepared to even leave the state, you probably work in a toxic environment. There's a fear of failure. And, when I say fear of failure, this isn't to, how do I say? Everybody has some like little fear of failure. You know what I mean? Like everybody has like a little fear of failure. And if you think that I'm lying, take a look at the people who are afraid to, start a secondary craft. Think about the people who are afraid to, take their dreams and ambitions and take them to the next level. There's a certain level of fear that they have about it because they don't want to see themselves crash and burn. But it's one thing to have a fear, to have that little bit of fear of just, like, damn, man, like I fucked up today. And then there's another, it's one thing to have a fear of, oh man, like, damn, man, like I fucked up. But then there's another where you're paralyzed by the simple idea of fucking up. Because the people around you, right? Like the people around you have instilled or they push this level of perfection onto you so much, right? That any deviation from it's almost taboo. It's almost blasphemy. You feel me? Even if you make a small mistake, you're afraid. You're afraid to make that because you're like, fuck, man, if I fuck this up, I'm fucked. You know what I mean? And because of that, that prevents you from leaving your comfort zone. It prevents you from taking on new taskers that are out of the norm for you. You know what I mean? And I bring that up because I've been around situations like that where the expectation is so fucking high that we're almost hesitant to make changes. We're almost hesitant to accept change because if we don't have the luxury to fuck up. We just don't have that luxury. And because we don't have that luxury to fuck up, we're not going to take the change. You know what I mean? And because we don't want to take the change, we're stuck in the exact same pattern over and over, and nothing new can truly be added. And if that is probably one of the situations, like if you are feeling that, more than likely you probably work in a toxic environment. Because any environment that is pushing perfection onto you, is one thing for us to, strive for proficiency. You know what I mean? It's one thing for us to strive for proficiency. It's another one we striving for perfection. I say that because perfection was never in the contract. We will never be perfect. We will never be perfect. Mankind, humans are not perfect. We fuck up on a regular basis. On a regular basis, we fuck up since the dawn of time. And when we become blind to that, right? Like when we become blind to the fact that we're not perfect. When we become blind to the fact that, when we become blind to the fact that we're not perfect, it creates this expectation that we are. It creates this perception that we are. And once we start believing that, we don't feel comfortable with failure. In fact, the idea of failure scares us to the point where now we're stuck. We won't ask for help. We won't step outside of our norms. We won't take on new taskers. We won't do anything that's going to affect or blemish this perception of perfection that we have for ourselves. And if that is the case, man, you're probably working in a toxic environment. And the last one, and I think this right here, it's something that everybody feels, and I don't think we talk about it enough. But if your environment takes more from you than what it's actually putting back in, if it's getting to the point where you don't see the why, you don't see the why anymore. You don't understand why you're dealing with this. You're constantly drained. You pull up early in the morning just to put your head on the fucking steering wheel, and you have to muster the strength to get out of the car, to deal with the people, to deal with the job, to deal with everyone around you. You work in a toxic environment. The environment that you are currently working in is very toxic to your mental health. So now that we understand exactly what it is, or like low key indicators that you work in a toxic environment, how do we survive that? And when I say how do you survive something, right? Please understand that this isn't gold. This is not gold. What I'm giving to you right now is not set in stone. It will be flexible to whoever is hearing it, and you can apply it to the things that are going on in your situation. However, one thing that I really want you to understand, is that the tips that I'm giving you, these are the things that I apply for myself. These are the things that now I'm implementing for myself and that I have implemented to survive the working environments that I have been through. First one, and I feel like this is the most important one, is that you got to stay true to yourself. You have to stay true to yourself. And the reason why I say that this is the most important one is that when you work in a toxic environment, I remember in my earlier episodes, 3 things have a effect on us. And that's your environment, your habits, and your friends. If you change your environment, you can change your friends. And when you change your friends, you change your habits. You change your habits, you change your friends, you change your environment. If you make a change to one of these things, all 3 always have to change eventually. And I say staying true to yourself because this is your habits that we're talking about. This is who you are. And when you're working in a toxic environment, right, we as humans want to feel accepted. We want to feel like we belong somewhere. And when you work around people that are toxic and they're not like you, then this ain't the tribe that you normally want to be in. You have to face you're faced with 2 situations. Either A, you're gonna be alone, or B, you're gonna compromise who you are. Now, a lot of people right now, and I'm pretty sure whoever's listening is gonna say, "Well, I'm not gonna compromise who I am." See, this is the thing that a lot of people don't understand, right? This is the thing that a lot of people don't understand. Is that when you are actually alone, you feel me? Let me rephrase that. No, not alone. When you are overwhelmed by loneliness, you will do anything to get out of that. You know what I mean? Like, I remember I made an episode about, the difference between being alone and feeling alone, right? And, I used to pride myself on how comfortable I felt alone. but I don't think I really experienced what it meant to feel alone. I don't think I really did. And when I finally did, I found out aspects about me that I was not proud of. I'm going to be honest. I found out aspects about myself that I just wasn't really proud of. And I bring that up because when you feel alone, right, and you're not comfortable with that level of loneliness, you will do anything to get out of it. You will do anything to get out of it. You will compromise who you are just so you can feel accepted on the team. You will. And once again, I'm not trying to like attack anybody who begs to defer, but at the exact same time, there was a time where, I was so proud of who I am, and after spending like, I don't know, 3 months, 6 months, 8 months without talking to anybody, but I'm in a room full of fucking people, I wanted to feel like I was on the team. You know what I mean? I wanted to be a part of that team. You don't know what real loneliness is until you fucking in a room full of people and you know that they not talking to you and you can't talk to them, and you fuck around and laugh at one of the jokes that you overheard. That's a level of loneliness that a lot of people, I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy, to be honest with you. And when you have reached that stage, like you just want to talk to somebody. You just want to feel accepted. And because you want to feel accepted so bad, you are prepared to compromise who you are so you can blend or adjust to your environment. It's natural. We haven't made it this far without, making some form of adaptations to get through the situation. We haven't. And it may be small adjustments to yourself to fit. But over time, like those small adjustments, they start turning into big modifications. Next thing you know, you're turned into somebody who you truly are not. Who you truly are not. And it bothers you because deep down that's not who you are. Deep down that's not what you represent. That deep down those really ain't your ideas. Those are ideas of the majority, so you just go with it. So when I tell you that you have to stay true to yourself, man, like there's the caveat to that is that you're going to face that loneliness when you get into that environment. That is the caveat. But you have to ask yourself right now, is it worth compromising who I really am? Like, would I rather be happy with who I am, or would I rather them be happy with who I am? And it took me a long time to say that. So when I say stay true to yourself, man, like I would be remiss if I did not follow it up. I would be remiss if I did not follow it up with the next one. And that's to find a support system. To find a support system. I say you have to have a solid support system, because if you do not, you are going to become somebody that you're not. Your support system is going to be this toxic environment because you don't have one outside of it. You don't have one outside of it. So you're prepared to change into somebody else. It feels good when they invite you out to work after work. It feels good when you're hanging out with people outside of working environment, outside of working hours. It feels good because you feel like you found friends. It feels like that you found a team. It feels like you finally feel like you belong. Whole time though, you sitting to yourself and you're saying like, damn, this isn't who I am. In order to maintain who you are, both on and off duty, you have to find a support system that accepts you for who you are. Essentially, you have to find a place to be recharged. And honestly, I'm going to just be honest with you. These people ain't got a problem solve. They ain't got a fucking problem solve. They just got to be a listening ear. They really just got to be a listening ear to you. They just got to be a group where you can go out and do activities that still, resonate with who you are. They just got to be people where you can laugh with, genuinely laugh. They got to just be people where you could feel genuinely who you are, be who you are on a regular basis. Because if you don't have that, then you're just going to like turn into somebody else. Those people are going to keep you solid. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. And I feel like lately these episodes have been echoing this, but you got to get into the habit of saying no. You have to get into the habit of saying no. And not only do you have to get into the habit of saying no, you got to get into the habit of setting real, clear and concise boundaries. And when I say setting clear and concise boundaries, I'm talking about like you're not working on your fucking lunch break. And before I begin, because I'm known to work on my lunch break, I'm known to come in early, I'm known to come in late and to stay late. When you work in a toxic environment, right? When you work in a healthy environment, these things are appreciated. People will notice that you come in early. People will notice that you're the last one there. People will notice the time and effort that you put in. When you work in a toxic environment, they take. It's a take. It's not a give and take. It's just take. So you showing up and giving all of this extra time, they already had plans on trying to take that from you. So to see that you're doing that, it will go. You're just all your hard work and effort goes unnoticed. It will go unnoticed, and all you will feel is drained. So I tell you, if showtime is fucking 08, then you fucking show up at 7:45. Ain't no, I mean, unless you want to be there early. And that's the thing right there, is that the choice is always that because you wanted to be there. Not because you got these fucking exterior taskers that you got to knock out. No. If everybody else left at fucking 12, 14, 15, if everybody else left around that time, then grab your shit and get the fuck up out of there too. You feel me? Ain't no sense of you being a busy bastard for an environment that's not going to pour into you. If they're not pouring into you, then why are you pouring so much into them? That's my biggest takeaway with it. But once again, like, I can't stress this enough. If you are doing that, right? Like, I never frown at the person that worked during his child. I never frown at the person that came in early. I never frown at the person that stayed late. I will frown if you're doing it so that way you could appease somebody else. I will frown at it if you're doing it because these taskers really could have waited. But if you truly want to do that, you know what I mean? Because, you like to get a jump start in the morning. You like to prepare for shit later that day so that way, the next day is always easier. Then ain't nothing wrong with that. I do that. But the moment that you become a busy bastard, that's the problem. Don't take negativity home. I don't know why it was so hard for me to say that. But leave the negativity at work. And I remember, it was when I was in California. Back when I was in California, like, I was working in an environment that was just so detrimental to my mental health, right? I ended up picking up a fucking drinking habit. You feel me? I really ended up picking up a drinking habit. And I mean, like, yes, because of working in that environment and just reaching like so much pressure, I ended up starting this podcast. But if I didn't, I always think about what if I didn't do that, and where would I be? I probably would have been at SAC, or I probably would have been at Alcohol Anonymous. And, I bring that up because a lot of times, like, we work in these environments, and it's so taxing on us that we end up just taking the shit home. We never essentially leave work. Even when we go to our support system, all we want to talk about is work. Even when as soon as we get in the house, we upset about the shit that occurred at work. I'm going to be 100% with you. Every time I leave my job, I sit in my damn parking lot. I sit in my driveway. I sit outside of my house, and I sit there for about 5, 10, 15 minutes. However long it is for me to decompress. I don't rush it. I sit there because I know that I can't bring that in my house. I know I can't bring that energy in my house. So I sit there. I will brood outside of my house for 15 to 20 minutes before I actually have to go in, because I need to get that shit out of me. I really need to get it out of me. I don't want it in my house. I don't want to feel like that in my house. You know what I mean? I don't want to have anxiety in my house, like the place where I need to lay my head at. I don't want to have anxiety there, thinking about my job, thinking about the people. I can tell you right now, I ain't bringing it there. You know what I mean? Like, that shit gotta stay. It's gotta stay outside. Whatever the fuck got going on, at work, we'll deal with it when I get to work. But when I'm here, leave me the fuck alone. I don't want to talk about it. You know what I mean? And I bring that up because you have to have that. There has to be a certain boundary. You know what I mean? Like there has to be a certain boundary. Like if work consumes your life, then all your life is work. And is that something that you want to sit back on 10 years from now, 5 years from now, a year from now? Is that what you want to sit back on and say like, damn, all I did was work? You know what I mean? All I did was think about work. It does not have that much power over you. Let me rephrase that. Those people do not have that much power over you where it consumes your life 24/7. Next, and this kind of correlates to staying true to yourself, but avoid the drama. Man, I don't know what it is, man, but working in a toxic environment, being around toxic people and embedded by a toxic culture, it's got a way of bringing the fake out of you. You know what I mean? Like I remember one time I was working in a toxic environment, and I remember I just went home and I just said to myself, like, I'm so fucking fake. Like I'm a fake ass motherfucker. You know what I mean? Like I'm gonna keep it honest with you. I'm gonna keep it a buck. You know what I mean? Like when you work in a toxic environment and you just so desperate to like yeah, let me rephrase that. Because there's a certain words have power. You know what I mean? Like words do have power. And I apologize to anybody as I'm recording this episode, right? And I'm saying things that may trigger you. I forget that. Words do have power. But when we compromise who we are, right? And we want to be on the team, we end up turning into somebody that we're not. And it's a facade. It's a mask. You know that that's not who you are. And because you're fake for 8 to 12 hours out of the day, that shit is so exhausting. It's exhausting to be fake as fuck. It really is. To laugh at shit that you normally wouldn't laugh at. To talk about people behind their back, knowing that's not how you is. That's not how you are. I remember we was working in an environment, man, and we was talking, and I got into the gossip. You feel me? And this is human nature. It's really human nature for us to get into the gossip. And we always feel like once we get a little of that cheese, man, you feel me? As people start including us, that's when we feel like that we belong. And in comes the person that we talking about. In comes the person we talking cash shit about this person, and then they walk into the room, and guess what we did? We stopped fucking talking. The conversation got awkward. The whole energy got awkward. Why? Because we was already doing something we ain't had no business doing, talking about that person behind their back. And I remember the next day I felt so fucking fake. I felt fake. And you gotta ask yourself, like, let me rephrase it. You ain't gotta ask yourself because you know what it is. But a toxic environment got a surefire way of pulling the fakeness up out of a motherfucker. And you gotta ask yourself, is that something that you want to be okay with? Are you okay with that? You feel me? Like if you're okay with that, then continue to keep going. But are you okay with being fake like that? Engaging in that negativity? Engaging in that drama? Because one thing that I have always learned is that if you and a motherfucker could sit back and talk about a person, what do you think that person does when you're not around? If your environment talks shit about people behind their back, right? And you have always heard the cheesemate, you have always heard the gossip, what do you think they do when you're not in earshot? You feel me? They talk shit about you too. So now y'all just a group of fake motherfuckers. So I bring that up, man, because I don't want to be fake. I don't like feeling fake. It takes something away from me, man. It puts a blemish on my character. I don't like that. The next one, and this one, it probably don't get used a lot, but you got to report it. You feel me? A lot of companies have command climate surveys, and I'm pretty sure that's not how like the civilian work. That's not what civilians call their surveys. But I say that because that's the one that I know military members we use. The command climate survey. Don't click through that. If you work in a toxic environment and you constantly are complaining about your environment and it's taking a detriment on your mental fucking health, do not click through it. Fill that bitch out. Fill it out. I'm sorry for cussing. Fill it out. You know what I mean? Like fill that out. Tell them exactly what the situation is. It's anonymous. Tell them exactly what it is. You see what I'm saying? A lot of and this is one thing that somebody said a while back. I think it was Shane Official when he was on a show. He said toxic leaders will always keep getting promoted because all the good Marines keep getting out. Toxic leaders gonna keep getting promoted because nobody fucking checks it. It's always somebody else's problem to address the toxicity that's in the environment. Not realizing that if you don't address it, it's going to continue. And I know that's a hard thing to do. That's a hard pill to swallow. That's a hard tasker. It's hard. I get it. But if you think that you're the first person that this is happening to, and do you think that it's going to continue to, like, it's not going to continue to keep happening when you leave? Sometimes it's not even the environment. It's the people. Sometimes it ain't even the people. It's the culture. You feel me? You have to you have to make the steps necessary to I can't stress this enough. You got to make the steps necessary to report it. Excellent. And this one is very important. This one's very important. It's probably one of the most important ones after staying true to yourself, to be honest with you. Create an exit plan. Create an exit plan. You know, most people always say, like, quit your job if it's taken away from you. Let me rephrase that. I have told people to quit their job. You know what I mean? I have told people to quit their job if it's taken away from you. If you're not happy. I've told that, but I feel like we say that shit because we're not in the situation. We say that because we're not in the situation. Motherfuckers will deal with a toxic environment if it's the only option that they have. So, and this is the thing is that it's the only option, right? It's their only option because they have no other options. They have no other option. People are prepared to deal with a situation because it's the only thing that they have on the table. So I bring this one up because there has to be more. There has to be more options. Create an exit plan. And when you create an exit plan, this is what you are going to do after you're done with this. Like you need to build a nest egg. You have to. You need to start setting up yourself for a career outside of whatever the fuck it is. I remember I was talking to my aunt and she told me, she said, "What's your exit plan? I know you want to leave, but what's your exit plan?" And I couldn't tell her. She said, then baby, you ain't quitting. She looked at me just like that. She said, "Baby, you're not quitting. I can tell you that right now. You way too, if it was just you, I would tell you to quit and figure it out. But you got kids. You got people that depend on you. You don't have the luxury to just quit." And when she said that, that gave me a certain clarity when I say this now. You know what I mean? When I say this and I talk about toxic environments, it gave me a different clarity. You have to build an exit plan. If that means going to school, you need to go to school to get a degree. If that means looking at other jobs within a field, that means that you need to be doing that on your lunch break, early in the morning, late at night. You need to be doing these things to set yourself up so when you finally say, "I quit," I fucking quit. You know what I mean? My military people, man, hear me out, man. I understand that this fucking last 4 years has been a real shit show for you. But if you are just about to quit and go and live with your mom, that ain't the plan. You feel me? There may be a plan for you. That is an option on the table, but create other avenues. Create other avenues. And I can't stress that enough. Nobody deserves to work in an environment that's taking a toll on their fucking mental health. But at the exact same time, you are a fucking idiot if you just leave and have nothing. I take that back. Your level of desperation will cause you to make a mistake that is going to hurt you. It will hurt you. I'm gonna be honest. I was placed in a situation. It was such a toxic environment. I got an opportunity. You feel me? I got an opportunity to get out early. And the situation, the location of where I would have been, the long term was a bad idea. And I bring that up because I stayed in the environment. I stayed in the environment because I said to myself, I was like this, look, man, I know I'm desperate. I'm desperate, but my desperation is not about to make me jump on a quick out and end up suffering even more later. It's not. And a lot of times that's what we end up doing when we just quit abruptly. We hurry up and get out of one situation, and because we hurrying up and get out of one situation, we in a fucked up situation now. So we end up jumping on this opportunity, which ends up being worse than what we previously in. So that's why I say you need to create an exit plan. You need to. Lastly, and I think this is the end of it. You know, so I would be remiss if I didn't say it. Quit. Leave. If this shit is killing you that much, right? Leave. Have an exit plan though. You know what I mean? And I didn't want to say just leave without giving you all the other steps to survive it. But at the exact same time, and this goes without saying, is that environment ain't worth your health. Them people ain't worth your character. If it's too much, leave. You know, like it's hard to be resilient and maintain that for long periods of times. It's hard. And when it's getting to the point where you're breaking down, you're having anxiety attacks at the very thought of Monday because you know that you about to show up to that job again, then that job ain't worth it. But please understand, man, and I can't stress this enough. You have to have an exit plan. Because if you quit, right? Like if you just quit, you put yourself at the risk of taking whatever the fuck opportunity is next, just to get yourself back on your feet. However, if you prepared to fucking just grind it out for the sake of it, fucking quit. You see what I'm saying? If you ain't got nobody depending on you, right? Like if you ain't got nobody depending, let me phrase that. If you ain't got nobody, nobody in your corner, hey, tread lightly on this. But if you got somebody that can, like, and this is why, like, I always, this is why, like, I was real hesitant on this episode because it's so many variables with this. But if you on a team, and when I say on a team, I'm talking about you got somebody back home that will help you, then get the fuck out of this. But understand, and I cannot stress this enough, is that when you make that decision to walk out of here, you have to have other opportunities. You have to. I can't stress that enough. And just like that, another extraordinary thought left this ordinary mind. I hope you enjoyed this episode half as much as I enjoyed making it. Stay tuned every Monday as we bring you another episode. And lastly, don't forget to like this podcast, subscribe to this podcast, and share this podcast because this podcast was dedicated to helping you become a better version of yourself. And I don't know who needs to hear that, but just like we need more sleep, just like we need more money, we deserve to be a better version of ourselves. Stay hungry, stay motivated. I'm out.